Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording this on May 25th. Please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Also share the links, ask your social media to follow me, and also follow me on X. All the links are in the description of this video and all my videos, so please make sure you subscribe, click the notifications, follow me, and ask your social media to also follow me so I can recruit more viewers. I greatly appreciate it. I also do live streams on Rumble and on YouTube almost daily. And you can also see these live streams on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com under broadcast live. And you can also hear the audio podcasts of my shows on broadcast radio. You can hear my podcast also on Podomatic. Links are in the description of this video, and Apple Podcasts. So please help support the work by listening. And you can help support the work by donating. You can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. All the links are in the description of this video. And again, you can donate on the website on the homepage. You can be also a paid member to my Patreon channel. And by being a paid member to my Patreon channel, you're helping support the work. But all the videos that I'm doing are for free. I have thousands of videos for free. I don't put stuff behind a paywall. It's people that are being paid members and helping donate and purchasing the products on my store to help support the work that I do. I don't put stuff behind a paywall. So please help support the work I do. I give you all these videos for free. So please help support. With that, we're going to talk about China and what's going on with SARS-CoV-2. Now, it's important to remember that we are in the endemic phase of this. So we're going to hear mutations and flare-ups around the world, even in the United States, where there'll be cases that go up and then they'll come back down, right? Very similar to endemic pathogens that have once plagued mankind in a previous epoch. So this is no different. Now, there's other things that you need to pay attention to. First of all, as we are in the endemic phase, there's 2 things that most likely will happen. As the mutations are taking place, you're going to have these flare-ups, which is normal, and don't worry about it. But because of the serial passage of SARS-CoV-2 in Barrick's lab and in Wuhan by Backlund and Dr. Shi, because of that serial passage, it had a lot of affinity to different receptors. There are 5 receptors that are really important, but there are about a total of 20 that it has affinity to, but of various degrees. All right. The highest affinity and the most important is the ACE2 receptor that everyone knows about. But there are other receptors that are very important to pay attention to. CD147 is one. CD209 is another. So the point here is that over time, as the mutations start to take hold, you are having an attenuation with the ACE2 receptor, but you are adding affinity to other receptors. So the pathophysiology is slightly changing. And this is what I coined in 2020, the pinball effect, where it's losing affinity or gaining attenuation with one receptor, and because of evolutionary pressure, it will gain affinity to another receptor like CD147. It already has the affinity. It's just not as strong compared to ACE2. So if you put these viruses on a panel and you had different receptors, the probability of it sticking to the ACE2 would be high, and the other ones would be lower, depending on which receptor you're looking at. But over time, because of mutations, that probability could change. So the affinity could be stronger over time with CD147, and therefore the pathophysiology is going to change versus the high affinity of these 2. So it's called the pinball effect. And as that is happening, then you can have a major flare up that could last longer and then attenuate and come back down. This is going to happen over multiple decades, where you have these changes, waves. All right, it's not just one, because it's not just one receptor; it's multiple receptors with different types of pathophysiology. So you'll have these waves where there'll be a spike of it, and then, but the clinical presentation is slightly different. It may be less of pulmonary infection and more of some sort of problem with your red blood cells, or less as a pulmonary infection and more with the digestive tract, or less with a pulmonary infection and more with neurons. This is something to pay attention to because of the multiple receptors, and it's what I call the pinball effect. Now, I thought that the pinball effect would be faster, but because these mutations are not happening as fast as I was thinking they would, these pinball effects are going to go over multiple decades. Okay, so that's one point to pay attention to here. So we're in the endemic phase. It's not that big of a deal, but pay attention to attenuation of one receptor with a gain of affinity to another receptor on the pantheon of receptors that it can touch because of this serial passage that took place in Barrick's lab. Okay, the next thing to pay attention to is the fourth and the fifth cocktail. This is not the fourth or fifth cocktail, what's going on in China. All right, but what is the fourth and fifth cocktail? The fourth cocktail is SARS-CoV-2 platform with influenza. Certain genes of influenza expressing the H spike. All right, now, so in that chimera, there's this ability to express the spike protein from SARS-CoV-2 and the H protein, or the N protein, depending on what they inserted in, but most likely the H protein. That would have an affinity to all these different receptors. The spike protein would have the affinity to all these different receptors that I talked about earlier, including ACE2, but the H protein would have its affinity to its particular receptor. So you have more receptors to touch to. You have that problem. So what would happen is that it would have more of a presentation that is, it would be a combination of SARS-CoV-2 and a slight presentation of influenza. That's the fourth cocktail. Hasn't been released yet, but it could. Now, the fifth cocktail is SARS-CoV-2 platform with or without the H protein that also has expression of HIV genes. Now, some of those genes could be internal, like P24, or you can have genes that are presenting the actual full spike. So that's the fifth cocktail, where you have a spike, SARS-CoV-2, with a fully functional additional spike from HIV or other proteins that are being expressed typically in an HIV virus. That's the fifth cocktail. Now, the ramifications of that is that it's going to show manifestations of an HIV infection. Now, let's go back to the pinball effect that I was talking about before, where as over time, because of endemic and mutations, there's this attenuation of infectivity to the ACE2 receptor, but because there's so many other receptors, it gains function, all right, and has a higher affinity. That change in mutation and going to a different receptor and having a higher affinity, that's what is called tropism. Tropism is a major feature of HIV. So if you change a certain type, what happens is that early on in an HIV infection, it's a certain type of receptors that it has affinity to, and then over time there is a change, and that tropism will lead to other attachments to other receptors. All right, so keep that in mind, that there is this tropism aspect to the pinball effect. That's with what's out there right now, SARS-CoV-2. There's the fourth cocktail, SARS-CoV-2, with the H protein being expressed that hit other receptors. And you have the fifth cocktail, that where you have SARS-CoV-2 with or without the H being expressed, H protein being expressed, with other genes that are from HIV, either internal genes or spike protein genes, okay, that are fully functional. But the point here is that the fifth cocktail will have manifestations, the pathophysiology of it is going to be more similar to HIV. All right, so the fourth cocktail and the fifth cocktail have not been released, but they could be released. This has been developed. This is not theoretical. All right, so but it hasn't been. What has been released is the SARS-CoV-2, and there's this attenuation that we're in. There's this endemic phase that we're in that will eventually lead to tropism, to other higher affinities with these other receptors. It's attaching to the receptors now, but if you have less probability of the ACE2 and higher probability with, let's say, CD147, you have a different pathophysiology that's going to take place with that infectivity. So with that in mind, that's kind of like a background of why we need to pay attention. Now, we also need to pay attention to some historical context. The Spanish flu had multiple waves. We had multiple waves in SARS-CoV-2. And those multiple waves started to build up. There was a big spike, and then it started to attenuate, and there was kind of this harmonic, what I call a harmonic dissipation. You had a harmonic escalation, some waves that started, and then the big spike, which would have been Omicron. That would have been our harmonic increase, and then our harmonic decrease would have been after Omicron, and then this harmonic dissipation. All right, same thing happened with influenza. But what is interesting is that approximately about 10 years later, it was a big flare-up. Now, there's different theories on why that could be. Could be people's antibodies to a particular combination of the H and the N. If they didn't have the right combination for the antibodies, then they would not have been protected, and therefore a flare-up in 10 years. But there was a flare-up in 10 years. I suspect that around 2029 or 2030, there's going to be a larger increase of SARS-CoV-2 cases. Now, that may be a perfect moment in time to also release the fourth cocktail or the fifth cocktail. But even if the fourth or fifth cocktail is not released, there's going to be most likely a dynamic that emerges because of mutations that will lead to a further spike. And that coincides with this tropism that I was talking about earlier. So pay attention to 2029 and 2030, where there's a high probability of a larger caseload around the world, but not as bad as it was in the height of of the COVID crisis. In terms of case count, the highest case count was during the Omicron wave. So we're talking about late 2021, early 2022. All right, it's not going to be as bad, but it will be, based on historical context, more than some of those earlier waves or those later waves, pre or post Omicron. Okay, so that Omicron wave. So just keep that in mind. 10 years, sometimes there's a flare up, and it's beyond just the typical endemic, and then it dies down again. And this is part of the reason why the society psychologically, forget about, yeah, there's incentive for big pharma and blah, blah, blah. But psychologically, there is a memory from these large infections that take place around the world, and people have this desire psychologically to be inoculated, to have antibodies for. But if the analog of the epi curve holds, then we most likely will see a huge flare up of SARS-CoV-2 in 2029 or 2030. And to keep in mind, that may have been the perfect moment in time to actually release the fourth or fifth cocktail. So that's 2029 or 2030, based on the precedence of influenza epicurve dynamics. All right, with that, there is this mutation from JN that's taking place. It's an Omicron variant that is starting to flare up in China. So let's listen to some of the news that's playing about this subject matter.
Which countries are reporting a surge, and should India be concerned? Hi, you're watching the Free Press Channel, and I am Sneha Viswas. 5 years 19 first swept across the globe. The virus appears to be making a quiet but noticeable comeback in several parts of Asia. Which countries are reporting a surge in COVID-19 cases? Singapore is currently on high alert as the number of COVID-19 cases has risen by 28% in just 1 week. According to the country's Ministry of Health, the estimated infection.
This video was done 5 days ago.
For the week ending May 3 jumped to 14,200 from 11,100 the week before. Hospitalizations have also gone up, with daily admissions rising from 102 to 133. Although ICU cases saw a minor dip, health officials say the variants LX.7 and NV1.8, both offshoots of the JN1 strain, are currently circulating in the population. In Hong Kong, the situation is described by experts as quite high. The test positivity rate has more than doubled, climbing from 6.21% to 13.66% in just 4 weeks. In the week leading to May 10, the city recorded 81 severe cases and 30 deaths, the highest weekly death toll in a year. Most of the fatalities were among elderly individuals with pre-existing health conditions, raising fresh concerns about hospital readiness.
Right. And the thing is that if people haven't been paying attention about improving your health, if you haven't been paying attention, then over time, in the last 5 years, your body hasn't been really at optimal levels to be able to withstand another wave. And that's the reason why I've been telling you what to do to make sure you can withstand those waves.
witnessing a rise in COVID-19 infections, with the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention reporting a sharp increase in positivity rates. Though exact figures remain limited, officials indicate that current levels are approaching the peaks observed during the last major wave. Thailand has reported two notable cluster outbreaks this year, particularly after the April's Songkran festival, a major event that draws large crowds. While the number of severe cases remains under control, health authorities are actively monitoring the situation and advising the public to remain cautious. Now, moving on to India. What about India? In contrast, India's COVID-19 situation as of now remains relatively calm. As of now, there are only 93 active cases in the country, according to the Ministry of Health. No signs of fresh wave have emerged. Health experts say that while a significant resurgence is unlikely, people should not drop their guard entirely. Authorities recommend basic precautions such as wearing masks in crowded spaces, maintaining good hand hygiene, and ensuring timely booster vaccinations where applicable. Is there a reason to worry? Globally, health experts are urging caution but not panic. For those planning to travel to countries currently experiencing a surge, experts advise evaluating the urgency of the trip. Non-essential travel to high-risk areas should ideally be postponed. If travel is necessary, standard precautions, as I mentioned earlier, can significantly reduce risk. While the pandemic may be behind us in many ways, COVID-19 has not disappeared. So stay safe and stay aware. And for more such stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Free Press Journal. Thank you for watching.
Now, the key here is not to panic, all right? Just pay attention to what I've been saying. There is the high probability of tropism with the different receptors that SARS-CoV-2 attaches to. And that we're in the endemic, there's going to be cases that spike up in your community and then come back down. If you are health compromised, it's more problematic for you. If you're not health compromised, you'll be okay. In a small percentage of the population, even if you are super healthy, you may have problems. But that's a very small percentage, right? So just keep that in mind. But most likely, based on historical precedents with the Spanish flu, there was a surge 10 years later. All right. So I suspect that something similar is going to happen because of mutations. But we're in the endemic phase and there's an attenuation. Mutations still are taking place, but it's not that bad. All right. But if you have previous problems from the crisis of 2020 and you get hit again, you got a problem. You got a big problem. But if you're relatively healthy, you'll weather the storm decently. So there's these different groups and different probabilities that can happen. Does it mean the whole population is going to have problems? No. But the thing is that if you continually repeat the issue, and this is an important point here, because of what I call AIDS-like syndrome, all right, that's shutting down your immune system. When you keep on chronically getting infected, then what happens is that you are stimulating your IG4s and by stimulating your IG4s through this pulsing of additional infections, it's actually immunosuppressive. In addition, because of the super antigen of S1 subunit that attaches to the TCR, the T cell receptor, it doesn't allow for it to attach properly to the MHC2 receptor. And it also, that T cell starts to produce pro-inflammatory cytokines, causing inflammation. So it further causes problems with your immune system. This is part of the mechanism of the AIDS-like syndrome so if you're getting constantly pulsed with infection through the endemic phase, you are weakening the immune system. All right. Now, a lot of people weren't paying attention to what I've been saying, but I've been very accurate about this. So just keep in mind, yes, we're in an endemic phase, but if you chronically are getting pulsed with this, even if it's mild, it's actually causing problems with your immune system. And that's why it's important to bring down that inflammation, all right, and try to boost up your immune system the best you can. And I tell you how to do that. All right, so that's that phase of it. So right now, it's not big of a deal. This is just normal endemic dynamics. Now let's take a look at what Decoding China has. Now, Decoding China seems to be kind of a CIA operation. But let's just take a look at how they frame what's going on in China. Should we get it?
Results. Adding to the anger is a promise long broken. China's COVID crisis worsens, sudden death surge, coffin shortage reported.
This is 2 days ago. All right. And I would not be surprised that there is some sort of disinformation within this video that is tied to the CIA.
Government betrayal, poison gas threatens lives. Hundreds of Sichuan villagers block roads in protest. Shaman turns ghost town in 2025, chilling reality shocks China. Beijing's wealthy rush to emigrate, luxury villas left abandoned and decaying. China's economy like a leaking truck, experts reveal the crisis behind April data. Welcome to Decoding China, your go-to source for vital news and deep insights. China's COVID crisis worsens, sudden death surge, coffin shortage reported. Mainland China is grappling with a worsening COVID-19 outbreak as alarming reports of surging infections and sudden deaths dominate social media. On May 17, the Third Eye Channel on the Ganjin World platform reported a massive outbreak, with the Chinese CDC confirming COVID-19's dominance in emergency
May
room
17th.
Since April. Yet, with many hospitals refusing to test for the virus, the true toll remains hidden. A doctor from Xintai City People's Hospital in Harbin shared on Douyin that COVID-19 cases are overwhelming fever clinics. Another Douyin user warned that post-May Day infections are rampant, stating, "One person gets sick, the whole family suffers." Netizens report widespread symptoms, fever, cough, and sore throat, insisting the virus never disappeared, despite CCP claims labeling it as the flu. Bloggers are sounding the alarm over sudden deaths, with people collapsing while walking, playing cards, or even sleeping. Death toll overwhelms, coffin shortages reported. The Third Eye Channel highlighted a disturbing trend: mass deaths are overwhelming communities. In one county with fewer than 300,000 residents, a funeral parlor's 15 halls were fully occupied in a single day. A blogger traveling 155 kilometers to Changsha counted 17 funerals along the way, declaring that China's death rate has reached a peak. In April, citizens told overseas media of a new wave infecting entire families, with hospitals overcrowded and cardiovascular deaths surging across all age groups. In Sichuan, Hebei, coffin prices have tripled, from 4,000 to 12,000 yuan, approximately $555 to $1,666, due to shortages driven by high mortality. Zhejiang coffin factory workers report relentless demand, with new factories springing up to handle the surge in deaths, including among many young and middle-aged individuals. Since late 2022, the CCP has halted broad COVID testing. Authorities now classify cases as flu or pneumonia. The Third Eye Channel alleges that the CCP has deliberately concealed the severity of the outbreak and the death toll, leading many citizens to die unaware of the true cause. The report references the founder of the spiritual practice Falun Gong, Mr. Li Hongzhi, who revealed that the CCP is covering up the truth and that up to 400 million people in China have died from COVID-19 since the outbreak began. Government betrayal, poison gas threatens lives. Hundreds of Sichuan villagers block roads in protest. A dramatic protest erupted in Sichuan province on May 18th as more than 100 residents of Taoyuan village, Chengli town, blocked a major road in Dongpa district to demand justice. Their village has been suffocated by toxic emissions from nearby factories, while a 2-decade-old promise of relocation remains unfulfilled. Protesters used planks, bicycles, and their own bodies to form barricades, halting traffic to the local industrial park. They held signs reading, "Give us back our blue sky, honor the relocation deal, and we just want to live." Elderly villagers stood beside young mothers holding babies, chanting slogans like, "The government broke its word and toxic gas is killing us. We want truth and justice." Footage posted by independent outlet Hexima TV on May 20th showed police in riot gear storming the scene. Officers ordered villagers to disperse, threatening consequences. Some pleaded, "We're not here to cause trouble, we had no choice." The response was swift and brutal. An elderly man in his 60s was struck and collapsed. A young man who shielded his mother was dragged away. The protest was crushed within hours. Several villagers were beaten, arrested, and remain missing. Overnight, all related content disappeared from Chinese social media, videos and posts wiped clean. A village suffocated by industry and lies. Taoyuan village was once a tranquil corner of Maishan City. But since 2000, local authorities have pushed rapid industrial expansion, building an industrial park spanning thousands of acres. Chemical, pharmaceutical, and pickle processing plants sprang up quickly, bringing unbearable stench, polluted water, and serious health problems. Mr. Zhang, a resident, said, "In the past, we could hear frogs at night and breathe clean air. Now, the smell stings your throat the moment you step outside." The village's well water has turned yellow, livestock have fallen ill, and both children and the elderly suffer from chronic coughs. In 2024, a local doctor privately warned that prolonged exposure could cause respiratory diseases or cancer. But authorities have never released environmental test results. Adding to the anger is a promise long broken. In 2005, officials and developers pledged to relocate the entire village after completing the industrial park, offering new homes and compensation. 20 years on, there's been no relocation, only repeated delays. Villagers now say even their phones are monitored and they no longer have the right to complain. Tightened censorship, rising resistance. In China under Xi Jinping's leadership, grievances find no official outlet. In 2024, the Cyberspace Administration upgraded censorship systems to filter out any keywords related to protests or civil rights. Domestic platforms remain silent, but footage of the Taoyuan protest, along with others, continues to spread on overseas social media, often revealing scenes of police brutality. According to Freedom House's China Dissent Monitor, protest movements in 2024 involved a wide array of groups: workers, religious communities, homeowners, farmers, students, parents, investors, consumers, activists, Tibetans, and Mongolians, indicating that dissent has reached nearly every part of society. Chinese human rights lawyer Wu Xiaoping told Radio Free Asia, "The CCP is not a government of justice, it's a party-state dictatorship. Its legal system causes many of the very problems people are trying to resolve. With no fair or affordable way to seek justice, the public is pushed into protest. They have no other choice." On January 16, Human Rights Watch released its World Report 2025, confirming that in 2024, the Chinese government systematically suppressed human rights nationwide. Wang Songlian, deputy director for China, said, "From free speech to religion, Beijing maintained tight control. New repressive laws were passed, critics jailed, and reporting on abuses became nearly impossible." Xiamen turns ghost town in 2025, chilling reality shocks China. Xiamen, once Fujian's crown jewel, a vibrancy garden famed.
Let's switch over to China Observer. This was 6 days ago. Now just keep in mind the tropism that potentially could take place between these different receptors. And there are lots of, there's like 20 plus receptors. Not all of them have affinities. So it's really important that over time, some of these receptors are going to gain affinity to the spike protein. All right. And some of those receptors are CD209, GPR78, CD147, CD299, and others. Now, a lot of people aren't talking about the tropism that's emerging with SARS-CoV-2.
The 45-foot clubhouse. Heaters, coolers, and
给大家讲一
you hear the call. Lilies rustling, birds singing. You hear sand shifting.
It's both COVID and the flu, I think. My throat hurts like crazy. Swallowing is just too painful. And I get fevers at night, coming and going every few hours, with headaches and body aches all over. A few days ago, I couldn't even get out of bed. The pandemic was supposed to be over in 2022, but 3 years later, I'm still testing positive. Plus now this flu on top of it. It's really bad. This is the worst I've ever felt in my life.
注意了，注意了，这个病毒它又
Heads up, heads up, this virus is back again. For the first time in my life, I'm showing 2 lines on the test.
我的乖乖嘞，你咳嗽了。
Oh man, I'm coughing so hard. Guys, COVID is back. This new variant is called LP8.1. This time, it mainly attacks the throat. I felt like I'm swallowing razor blades for 3 or 4 days now. Medicine doesn't help. Yesterday, I had so much saliva.
Now,
it was
when
like
I
giant
look at this
nose.
video, I don't believe this person doing this short video that he doesn't look as sick as he's saying.
While trying to sleep. He woke me up coughing because my throat hurt so much. I didn't even want to swallow.
来比我的体质，朋友们让跳高了。
I still can't calm down. Friends, 2 lines again. When I think about it hitting me, it's so sad. It started with a little cold yesterday, and today it got really bad. I took the afternoon off to rest. My temperature was 37.4 degrees. My whole body hurts. Oh man, I've tested positive twice in 5 months. It feels like my life's counting down. Since
Now, this
the
is
May
the problem
Day holiday.
this is the problem that I'm talking about. If you are being pulsed, right, especially if it's within 1 year. So if you contract it multiple times in 1 year, you are increasing the probability of the AIDS-like syndrome that I was talking about. And the reason being is that you are bringing up your IG4s, and that's immunosuppressive. And so what happens is that your immune system isn't working as well, on top of the sub-super antigen capability of the S1 subunit on the TCR. And that causes inflammation and prevents the CD4 cells from being effective. Your CD4 count's fine. See, in HIV, your CD4 count eventually starts to go down, especially when you have full-blown AIDS, all right? But with AIDS-like syndrome, what happens is your CD4 count could be down temporarily and then come back up. But what's more important is that with AIDS-like syndrome, you have a typical CD4 count, but effective CD4s are lower because of the sub-super antigen. Now, it's not a super antigen, and therefore you don't have sepsis, because to have sepsis, because of a super antigen, you would be attaching to the TCR and attaching to the MHC and preventing the CD4s from eliciting an immune response. And so there's a huge surge of pro-inflammatory cytokines. In this case, with a sub-super antigen, you have a less concentration of pro-inflammatory cytokines relative to a sepsis reaction, but it's still inflammatory, causing problems with your immune system and causing damage to your tissues. On top of inhibiting this sub-super antigen is inhibiting your CD4 cells, and therefore you have ineffective CD4, and your effective CD4 count is going down. AIDS-like syndrome. So if you're pulsing and getting infected, multiple times in a year, you are increasing the probability of the AIDS-like syndrome.
Users on Chinese social media platform have posted videos reporting new COVID-19 infections with symptoms including fever, cold, sore throat, and cough. Despite 3 years having passed since the initial outbreak, the
The
COVID-19
key is to bring down those pro-inflammatory cytokines. The key is to neutralize pathogens and reduce that pulsing effect that's activating, reactivating the IG4 pathway. You want to stop that. You want to stop that transmission. You also want to bring down those pro-inflammatory cytokines because of this inhibition that's taking place with your CD4 based on the subsuper antigen from the S1 subunit.
Pandemic is resurging fiercely in 2025. Hospitals in multiple regions are once again overcrowded. Recent videos on Chinese social media platform Douyin shows packed hospitals with long queues and overcrowded patients, especially in respiratory departments. A viral video features a respiratory doctor stating that COVID-19
All right,
patients
so why
may
is
have
this important? Why is this important? Now, in a lower population environment, in an endemic flare-up, it'll come up and then die down. But when you have a large population, heavily dense, it's going to circulate and mutate, and more people within that population in absolute numbers will have that higher probability of having these problems that I'm talking about with the tropism, the reactivation of the IG4s, and the AIDS-like syndrome of shutting down the CD4.
large proportion of cases.
很多呢，今天10几个病人，
There are a lot of cases. Today, over 10 patients. About 80% are COVID, so it's a big chunk.
I got 3 vaccine shots, including a booster.
Whether it's the vaccine or infection, immunity doesn't.
No, here's the problem is that by keep on pulsing that system with the inoculations, you're reactivating the IG4, and that's immunosuppressive over time, and that's the same problem with the pulsing of the natural infection. So you can cause this AIDS-like syndrome effect, either temporary or longer lasting, with that pulsing of the natural infection, and you're getting infected multiple times in a shorter period of time, and or that pulsing with those boosters. And when that happens, you're reactivating your immune system to the point where it's actually becoming inhibitory. You're activating too much of the IgG4 antibodies, and that is immunosuppressive. And then when you have these pro-inflammatory cytokines that are produced, then cortisol levels are starting to go up. That's also, with certain pathways, immunosuppressive and causing damage to tissue.
Hospital just a few months. After all these years of vaccines and infections, what's the use?
They're not.
On May 15th, a video released by Truth Media on the X platform reported several hospitals in Beijing overwhelmed due to a resurgence of COVID-19. In the video, a woman warns people to avoid crowded places.
Someone should
给大家
never,
讲一下，最
I'll
近讲
tell
有
you, someone should never get a booster. Never get a booster with this stuff, because it's only going to harm more. It's going to harm the system even more.
Let me tell you, flu and COVID have been crazy lately.
Gentlemen, we gather here today to honor the gifts of Father's Day past. Ties, mugs, whatever this garbage is.
Flu and COVID have been crazy lately. Don't go to crowded places. At the end of April, my daughter went somewhere unknown and came back with the flu. She had a high
The reason
fever of
why the flu and SARS-CoV-2 is happening is not because of the fourth cocktail. It's because the immune system is weakened, and it's what I've been saying for 5 years. AIDS-like syndrome. It's a weakening of the immune system because the pulsing of the natural infection and the pulsing of these inoculations.
40 degrees for 3 days. We kept cooling her down. The last time I had COVID was November 2022, and since then, I barely got sick or took medicine. This COVID is really strong though. It's not as bad as the first time, but I definitely feel this variant is serious. Be careful, everyone. Many residents have also shared videos describing their symptoms after contracting COVID-19, emphasizing the severity of this new variant. May brought the strongest variant
And what
of
is
my
interesting,
life.
what
Yesterday,
is interesting about this is that typically a resurgence of an endemic kind of pathogen is during the cold season, not now. All right. But what is interesting is that HMPV typically flares up in March or May. All right. And it flared up in China a little bit early in December, in January. So the point I'm making here is that there was a pulse of a different pathogen that weakened the population on top of a weakened population because of the crisis of 2020, that it seems as though the normal endemic kind of waves are earlier than normal. All right. I would have expected this to be happening at around September of this year, not in May or June. So that's a little worrisome. That part is a little worrisome. And so when it comes to the United States in the fall, as is circulating around the world, it may be problematic. Is it problematic to the United States right now? No.
it hit 40 degrees. I was dizzy, my limbs were weak, and I had chest tightness and shortness of breath. When I saw 40 degrees on the thermometer, I nearly jumped out of my chair. It was my first time seeing 40 degrees on a thermometer. This post-COVID is really scary. Just now, I had a bloody runny nose. I sneezed and then my nose started bleeding. I wiped it, looked down and saw bright red blood. It scared me so much. Don't get COVID, please. This one is really serious. Oh man, this is my third positive test. On May 10th, I visited Longpa Temple and felt something was off. That night, my sister came back from the city and got a fever first. On the 11th, around 7 p.m., I started running a high fever. And the next morning, my throat felt like swallowing razor blades. This is my third positive test. If this keeps happening, I don't think I'll live past 60. I don't know what variant this is this time. Look, coughing every day, no phlegm, just that throat tickle. It's been like this for half a month. My younger kid's stomach is bad, and every time he coughs, he throws up. Yesterday, we went to Shifang, and he threw up all over the car, and I just cleaned it. I really don't know what to do. Today is day 8 with COVID. My voice is still hoarse like a duck's. Who would have thought? It's 2025 and I still get COVID. Becoming a little positive person.
Guys, I've been positive for 3 days now. This one feels about the same as before. Really bad. I went back to my rural hometown over Labor Day. Probably my mom caught it first. She got cold symptoms and felt awful. Then I got it. Then my son, daughter, and wife. All with COVID symptoms. Cold, fever, body aches, feeling terrible. I haven't slept well for 3 days, just about 2 hours each night.
Comments flood the internet describing their suffering. Just had an unusual explosive headache. COVID is scary. My throat hurts when I speak. Even ibuprofen extended release capsules don't help. I've been coughing for a month. It's
The future of performance management is visual. Increasingly, digital signage is taking center stage when it comes to driving productivity and action.
I've been coughing for a month. It's terrible. My throat feels like I'm swallowing razor blades. My whole family got sick. This illness is serious. Notably, the recent surge in attention to China's COVID situation was triggered by Hong Kong singer Eason Chen's diagnosis and subsequent concert postponement. Eason Chen's 3 concerts originally scheduled for May 16 to 18 at the Kaohsiung Arena in Taiwan were postponed to May 29 to 31st after his positive COVID-19 diagnosis. His management company, Universal Music, announced on May 15 that Chen fell ill on the evening of the 14th, was diagnosed with COVID-19, and had to suspend performances immediately for recovery. Eason Chen expressed regret on Weibo, stating, "After waiting 12 years for the Kaohsiung Arena, I never expected to be taken down by the virus overnight." Thanks to the celebrity effect, this news quickly spread online. Fans expressed sympathy for Chen, while the public was shocked by the apparent resurgence of the COVID-19 pandemic.
你们这边最近阳了的人多不啊？
Are lots of people around you testing positive? I have a bunch nearby. Just saw on the news, even Eason Chen tested positive and his concert got postponed. Everyone, please wear your mask when you go out.
最近大家还是把口罩戴上吧，又有点严重。
Now, what is
Everyone should keep
interesting,
wearing masks.
what's going to happen in the United States when this does happen? In the United States, most likely in September, but let's just say that it happens in September. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it'll most likely happen in the United States. You're going to have lots of people, they're going to say, yes, it was bad, but I recovered. But they don't realize what has just happened. They've been pulsed. And with that pulse, with the natural infection, it's just like being pulsed by the inoculation. And again, it's the IgG4 antibody being immunosuppressive. And so it's weakening the immune system on top of you have spike in your system, either through the inoculation or through the natural infection, that is at least temporarily shutting down the CD4 effective cells, because it's blocking the CD4 from attaching to the MHC2. And plus you have this pro-inflammatory, the pro-inflammatory effect. So the virus is causing inflammation, shutting down that CD4, pulsing your IgG4 count, and now it's suppressing your immune system, so it's harder to clear the infection. People don't understand what I've been saying since 2020, and that is everyone has been painted into a corner. No matter, there's no way out of this. You can't get out of this situation. The only thing is to take a look at what the pathways are and how to try to mitigate some of the pathways. What are some of the problems? Pro-inflammatory cytokine production. You need to shut that down. You can shut that down. Another thing is to stop the pulsing from the inoculation, stop the boosters. Another thing is to boost up your immune system, so if you do get pulsed by the natural infection, that your immune system has the energy to kind of absorb it. All right. So that means lifestyle change, right? And do certain things that will help to boost up your immune system that I tell you on a daily basis how to do. But the thing is that everyone is, no one can run away from this. No one, no matter who you are, you can't run away from this.
It's getting serious, especially in Hong Kong. There are still many severe cases and over 20 deaths
And then
reported.
people in the United
I
States will
haven't
go,
gone out
well, they didn't die. They didn't die. They didn't go into the hospital. They didn't die. But they're not paying attention that you now have suppressed your immune system, and you have now opened up yourself to opportunistic infections that may be transitory. But the thing is that your immune system is down, and now you have AIDS-like syndrome. And then further problems take place. You age faster. You start having problems with your memory. You start having problems with your heart. You start having problems with your digestive system. You start having problems with your vascular system. You can't run away from this.
Lately, and I had a sore throat and mild fever recently. Probably caught it too. I said in my last video, everyone should keep wearing masks. Hong Kong's situation is serious, but many people don't know what's going on. I only saw this info after Labor Day.
The masks don't help. The masks don't help. Masks won't help. Masks won't help you in terms of truly mitigating the problem, because one, people don't wear the mask properly. They don't take off the mask properly. And not just that, the way the masks are designed, in most cases, the masks are designed to reduce the probability of spreading it if the individual has something and they're wearing the mask, not the other way around, where someone has something, all right, someone doesn't have something, and if someone's not wearing it properly in their hands and all that, you're eventually going to catch it anyways. So the masks are at the very best very minimally prevent people from getting sick. Very minimal. It's not effective. Not effective. What is effective is boosting up your immune system.
For info on Douyin, I had to find out elsewhere. The cases started rising in April in Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Because Hong Kong's severe cases and deaths are higher, people are paying more attention now. Many ignored it before, thinking it was just a regular cold. Mixed with flu and adenovirus, masks don't completely stop infection, but they do help, right? Most severe and deaths in Hong Kong are older people or those with pre-existing conditions. There are also pretty severe child cases.
Think about this. You have people that have pre-existing conditions that don't weather the storm very well. Why? Because they have pre-existing conditions. Most of those pre-existing conditions are diabetes, heart disease, and pulmonary problems. So it makes sense that they would go first. When you're older, your immune system is down just by the process of aging. And then on the other side of the spectrum are the very young, where their immune system isn't fully robust. Right? So it takes 6 months before you can even produce IgGs. But it takes about 2 years before that child has a more robust immune system. So it has to be exposed to different things, right? So it has a weakened immune system just in its first couple of years of life.
Some normally healthy kids got very sick too. Based on the above cases and the woman's description, the outbreak actually started quite some time ago. However, as usual, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, chose to cover up the truth again, deliberately suppressing related information. This caused most of the public to remain unaware and failed to take protective measures. Moreover, the May Day holiday saw a surge in travel, with crowded tourist spots further accelerating the virus's spread. If not for the postponed concert of singer Eason Chen drawing public attention, the truth about this wave of infections might still be largely unknown. On May 16, following news on Eason Chen's COVID-19 diagnosis, the topic COVID-19 cases surge again in mainland China quickly trended online. Comments from
Turn thinking about your bathroom into loving it with Floor and Decor.
There's a better way to save on work travel. Book your work travel on Engine to find
trended online. Comments from netizens across the country say that it is already a full outbreak in mainland China. A user from Jiangxi reported school closures, while another in Jilin said the epidemic has been ongoing, but people just stopped caring. On platform X, a user wrote, COVID-19 has never truly disappeared in China. From last year to this year, the CCP officials have emphasized flu outbreaks.
This is the thing that people need to realize. People need to realize it's endemic. It will never go away. It will never go away. Did influenza go away after the Spanish flu? No. It will never go away. And if I'm right, it's going to get worse, most likely in 10 years. And that there's this tropism that's going to start to emerge, where you're going to have higher affinity in different pathophysiology as it gains additional affinity to these different receptors and lose affinity to the ACE2. Now, if I'm right, then when someone gets SARS-CoV-2, it's actually going to manifest differently. Now, if you take this from a military point of view, it weakens the chances of China being able to strike Taiwan. So if you want to prevent World War III, you might want to infect your enemy.
Reported. Many say it is either flu or COVID, but are forbidden to say so. Now the CCP reports a rise in COVID cases. There's probably a massive outbreak that can no longer be hidden. The comment said the CCP is the culprit behind this disaster. Mr. Liu, a Shanghai resident, told Western media that local epidemic information is strictly controlled, with hospitals refusing to say patients have COVID-19, citing only underlying illnesses. Doctors also avoid confirming the diagnosis. A netizen in Hangzhou said they have been ordered to work from home due to the outbreak. Zhang Yue from Zibo, Shandong, told foreign media that a wave of infections hit in late March, nearly costing his life. I've had COVID several times before without needing IV treatment, but this time I couldn't handle it. I was bedridden for half a month with respiratory and lung symptoms, nasal congestion, phlegm, recurrent fever, and lung pain when breathing hard. I'm better now, but not fully recovered, he lamented.
When
COVID
these things
never
happen,
ends.
when you have that, here's the problem. COVID never ends in two ways. One, it's endemic and you're going to have this pulsing in the society, and you can get it multiple times in 1 year or even once every other year. But that pulsing is going to affect your immune system in a bad way, not in a good way. Secondly, in some cases, it never goes away, in the sense that some patients have the long COVID. So these have these long symptoms. And you also have this weakening of the immune system, this AIDS-like syndrome that I've been telling people about for over 5 years. It's playing out right now. But if someone has had a moderate to severe infection, it's going to take months to heal the tissue, just assuming that you've cleared the infection, which you really don't clear. You can never really clear the infection. It actually hides in your adipose tissue and your other tissues like your colon. But it stays dormant. All right. Now, if you calm your immune system and you calm those pro-inflammatory cytokines and you boost up your immune system, you can keep things at bay. But if you've had a moderate to severe infection, it's caused so much tissue damage around your body, not just in your lungs, especially in your lungs, obviously. If you have a severe pulmonary infection, it's going to take months to heal the tissue. So you've aged your body faster. It's taking more time to heal. You have an immune system that is compromised. So if you're 40 years of age and you have this moderate to severe infection, you've probably aged yourself 5 years if you've had it for 2 or 3 weeks and a severe pulmonary reaction. You've aged yourself 5 years. And it's going to take months to heal the tissue that's been damaged from the pro-inflammatory cytokines and the bombardment of the actual infection. Take months to heal. And those are the cases that aren't long COVID. Now, with long COVID, you have additional tissue damage and these long-lasting effects that age you even faster. So you get a moderate to severe infection, and you've aged probably more than 5 years. And you're taking months to heal. Now, if it's really severe, where it needs to be hospitalization and you've had it for a couple months, then you're talking about it'll probably take you 1 full year to to remodel the tissue damage. Some of that tissue is going to be fibrotic. There's going to be scar tissue, fibrotic, and what's going to happen is you've aged even more than 5 years with a suppressed immune system. So having it pulsed is a big problem, big problem, and that is with the inoculation or with the natural pathogen. And because the high density in China and the problems with hygiene, it's going to spread in the it's going to spread across the world. Now, again, this is endemic, and it's going to flare up, cause problems, and then come back down. So it's not going to be anything like what we went through before. But it's adding to the probability of that tropism, and it's adding to the probability of that major event 10 years out from the beginning of the crisis, which is going to be in the range of 2029 or 2030.
It never really goes away. Hospitals don't admit it. It's COVID, so it's all kept quiet. It's too hard. Infections is unavoidable. It's just a matter of time. A young parent from Zibo said that the whole family caught COVID during the May Day holiday. The kids recovered quickly in 4 to 5 days, but they themselves took 10 days. Symptoms were milder than the first time, but still tough, with lingering cough and possible mild pneumonia. A man from Suzhou, speaking under the alias Li Gang, said that his nearly 1-year-old child also caught COVID, diagnosed on May 14th after high fever. The child likely contracted from the grandmother who had contracted with an infected neighbor. Another man from Baoji, Shanxi, using the synonym Xiaoqiang, told foreign media, "There are a lot of colds lately. Many relatives and friends have fever and symptoms like during the previous epidemic. Doctors just call it a cold, a different name." He added, "Many people
Well, you know,
have
it's a combination. It's probably mycoplasmic pneumonia or influenza. It could be SARS-CoV-2. It could be HMPV.
Here. Years ago, tens died of white lung disease. Recently, 5 to 6 people died in our town. One person was fine before sleep but didn't wake up the next morning. Another had a cold and high fever that never dropped and eventually died.
Right. So when
Mr.
the immune
Zhong
system is
from-
starting, when the immune system, see, the reason why we're seeing it in China more often is because you have a higher population and it can circulate and change and mutate. So as the immune system is weakened because of the AIDS-like syndrome, these other infections are starting to pop up. It's not just SARS-CoV-2.
Sichuan revealed that the outbreak has lasted half a month locally. Several of his classmates in their 70s, previously healthy, suddenly died. These deaths have been kept from public knowledge. On May 12th, Beijing Chaoyang District Center of Disease Control announced a rising trend of COVID activity in the area.
Shop SelectBlinds.com Memorial Day sale from May 23rd to May 29th and take 60% off site-wide. That's right.
COVID activity in the area, though this went unreported by media and unnoticed by the public. In recent days, more mainland media have begun reporting on the surge. Reports indicate China's COVID-19 cases have hit a new peak, becoming the leading pathogen in emergency visits, with no signs of decline. Southern provinces show higher infection rates than northern ones. Hong Kong and Macau also face peak periods. Virologists said this wave is mainly caused by Omicron variant, with the NV1 lineage of the XDV variant dominant. This variant has strong immune escape, but no significant increase in severity so far, and no major wave of severe cases have appeared. Earlier on May 8th, China's CDC released national surveillance data for acute respiratory infections in April 2025. Results showed an increasing positive rate of COVID-19 tests. The nucleic acid positivity rate among flu-like outpatients rose from 7.5% to 16%, and among hospitalized severe acute respiratory infection cases from 3% to 6%. Southern provinces recorded higher positivity than northern ones. COVID-19 ranked first among detected pathogens and flu-like cases, especially among people aged 15 and above. However, regarding the surge, Chinese officials only published the positivity rate of respiratory pathogen nucleic acid tests without specific case numbers. On May 17th, Dr. Ding Xinming, chief physician at Beijing Shijiantan Hospital, told Chinese media that unlike flu viruses, which vary seasonally, COVID-19 is still mutating, and its seasonality is unclear. Compared to other respiratory infections, COVID-19 pattern seems disrupted, meaning infections may peak at any time, regardless of season or temperature. Dr. Ding stressed that elderly people and those with underlying conditions should still take precautions as their risk of severe illness remain higher. Dr. Li Tong, head of infectious diseases at Beijing Yuan Hospital, noted that since March, COVID outpatient visits and positivity rates have been rising, continuing through April and May without signs of decline. He said this minor wave comes nearly a year after the last one, with many people's antibodies waning, making reinfections easier. Dr. Li added that most young people recover within 3 days, but older adults still face pneumonia risk and should get tested if symptomatic. As government experts, Ding and Li speaks in line with CCP directives. Their statements serve information.
A 3 to 5 day symptomatic means 2 weeks of healing. All right, so whatever damage that took place, with if it was mild and it's just like 3 to 5 day to become asymptomatic, that's 2 weeks to heal your body. Now, if that's happening 3 times a year, either with SARS-CoV-2 or with SARS-CoV-2 with other pathogenic infections within the year, then it's taking just under 24%, 25% of your time of the year to heal, or you've been infected. Now think about that. 9 weeks out of the year. 9 weeks out of the year if you've been infected mildly 3 times a year. Now your immune system is going down, your energy levels are going down, your tissues are inflamed and damaged, they have to go through a healing process. You're aging faster. And people keep on thinking, oh, asymptomatic, but chronic illness, even if it's mild, will lead to faster aging, accelerated aging. And accelerated aging means immune systems are going down, your cognitive ability starts to go down, your mitochondrial health goes down, your ATP goes down, atrophy starts to go down, everything that's age related starts to accelerate.
Some truth are not openly discussed due to political sensitivity. In contrast, public comments and feedback provide a more realistic picture. As mainland China faces this outbreak, cases are also rising sharply in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. Hong Kong's Center of Health Protection reported a surge in COVID-19 deaths, rising from 3 in February. Deaths, rising from 3 in February to 26 in March, with 30 more deaths in the past 4 weeks. Edward Sui, the center director, called for increased protection and vaccination, noting no evidence that the current dominant XBB variant is more severe, but warning of potentially more dangerous mutations. Taiwan CDC reported a 7th Omicron wave, with outpatients visits increasing for 5 consecutive weeks, reaching 9,978 last week, a 66% rise from the previous week. There were 34 new severe cases and 6 deaths. expert Huang Gaobing noted a sharp case increase since late April, driven by more infectious and immune escaping variants LP8.1 and XEC, especially among people aged 10 to 30. The wave is expected to peak in June. Singapore's Ministry of Health reported 14,200 COVID cases from April 27 to May 3rd, up from 11,100 the previous week. Analysts believe the outbreaks in these surrounding countries are linked to the influx of mainland tourists during the May Day holiday. This situation recalls the early days of the pandemic in late 2019 when CCP authorities covered up the outbreak and allowed the virus to spread unchecked. In late 2019, Wuhan saw the first cases while CCP leader Xi Jinping called for a joyful and peaceful new year. Local authorities concealed the truth and even held large banquets. Dr. Li Wenliang, the whistleblower, was reprimanded by police for spreading false information. The virus soon spiraled out of control, becoming a global pandemic. The true death tolls remain unknown. During the zero COVID era, harsh lockdowns caused suffering and death from lack of care. In December 2022, China abruptly ended the policy, triggering a massive outbreak that overwhelmed hospitals and funeral homes. Since then, official funeral data was ceased to be published, raising concerns about transparency and data concealment. The consequences of the 2025
See what I
outbreak.
mean? No one can hide from this. You can't do zero COVID lockdown. The masks don't work. The inoculations won't block it. The reality of the situation is that some people are going to die now. Some people may be dying later after a reinfection or some sort of tropism. The reality is no one can hide from this. Nobody. The best that you can do is boost up your immune system the best that you can, change your lifestyle, be healthy, and live your life in a positive way the best that you can, because there is no way out of it. No one can hide from this. Nobody. You can pretend that you can hide from it, but you can't. You can't. You can't.
Still unfolding. Whether the CCP will resonate lockdowns or continue to suppress information remain uncertain. Under strict information control and distortion, the public must remain vigilant to prevent a repeat of past disasters.
Okay, this is in India Express. Or do I want to play NDTV? Let's play first post, and then we'll end the show here.
Taking a stand for investors. Everyone says it.
Is the Wuhan virus back? In recent weeks, several Asian countries have reported a surge in cases. This mainly includes Thailand, Singapore, and Hong Kong. They have reported tens of thousands of cases in recent days. Many people have lost their lives. Now governments are speeding up vaccinations and urging vigilance. What about India? Cases have seen a moderate rise in India as well. So should you be worried? What is behind this uptick of Wuhan virus cases in Asia? And 3 years after the pandemic, where does the global preparedness level stand? Here's a report.
The pandemic pushed the world indoors. Between 2020 and 2022, it killed millions of people. But is it making a comeback now? In Hong Kong, a new wave has begun. Infection rate has jumped from 1.7% in mid-March to 11.4%. In just the week ending May 3rd, 81 severe cases were reported, with 31 deaths. This is a one-year high for the country. Cases are surging in Thailand as well. Last week, more than 33,000 cases were reported, with at least 6,000 from Bangkok alone. The total has more than doubled from the week before. Meanwhile, Singapore is witnessing its first major spike in a year. More than 14,000 cases were reported in the week ending May 3rd, up from the week before. So why are cases rising again? Experts attribute the Wuhan virus resurgence to a range of factors, like waning immunity, fewer booster shots, and increased vulnerability among high-risk groups, like the elderly and unvaccinated children. Experts say that there are no dangerous new variants. The cases have been attributed to strains descending from the JN1 variant. This was first found in August 2023. JN1 has about 30 mutations. The most common ones are being found in the recent cases. And experts say that the current variants are not more severe or contagious than earlier ones. So while there is cause for concern, but no need to panic. After all, the Wuhan virus is not going away. It is evolving, making its return every now and then. So as health authorities are urging vigilance, governments are speeding up vaccinations.
See, the thing is that these mutations are not circumventing your immune system, all right? In the sense that, let's say you did get an inoculation or you had antibodies from a natural infection or both, all right? You have antibodies floating around. And the thing is that you have memory cells. You have T memory cells and B memory cells. Well, if you had something and then you had memory cells from that prior infection, if you get it again, you have titer levels, the antibodies floating around, that may be lower in concentration because it's been a year or two since you've seen that type of pathogen. And what will happen is that it will take hold, but your antibodies will attach and then elicit an immune response to elicit the plasma cells to produce more antibodies. All right. So in most cases, that's going to happen. So this idea that, well, yeah, your titer levels are going down over time, but you have a relatively decent level of titers for 5 years. Okay, we're at that 5-year mark. All right, and then it starts to wane. So you do have waning titers, but you still have the memory cells. It takes a little bit of time to activate those memory cells. And so therefore the infections that one may get may actually be a little bit longer than typical if you had a higher titer level. All right. But the thing is it should be still activating the memories, the memory cells. The problem comes in is that if you are blocking the T cells through this sub-super antigen, you're preventing a robust transmission mechanism to activate the B cells, the plasma cells, to produce more antibody. And therefore your immune system isn't robust, and hence AIDS-like syndrome. You can't, once this is set in motion, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. So the thing is that you have infection. Your body wants to have a transmission mechanism to elicit the memory cells to produce more antibodies, but that transmission mechanism is not as robust. And so it takes a little longer. If you have repeated inoculations, it becomes immunosuppressive. You get non-responsiveness with the titers. Your IgG4 start to go up, and that's immunosuppressive. On top of the spike protein that's in the inoculation, ends up being a sub-super antigen shutting down the effective CD4 count. So what do you do? Dr. Paul Cottrell, what do you do? Don't get a booster. And you have to just weather the storm if you do get it, and just try to boost up your immune system in a holistic way. That's the best that you can do. There's no way around this. There's no magic bullet here. And so the scientific community is saying, well, cases are going up, therefore the canonical thought is just put more titers in. Well, by putting more titers in, by boosting the body becomes less responsive to titer concentrations, and it shuts down the mechanism, your immune system, at least transitory, and it also is increasing your IgG4s, immunosuppressant. This is the reason why I kept on saying, before the Omicron wave hit, you have to shut down these labs. Because if you don't shut down these labs, it's going to cause more havoc and destruction with your system. Now, the only hope is that the attenuation takes place. It becomes endemic, but it's just mild and it's just over a couple generations. That we're talking 40 years. You know, over a 40-year period, you know, it's benign. It's not that big of a deal, and that the tropism isn't taking place. But because there are so many receptors that this thing touches with different affinities, the probability of a tropism to taking place is high probability. There is a part of that probability where it doesn't happen. And hopefully nature gives us a pleasant surprise. But I don't think so. I think their tropism is taking place. And that's part of the reason why it's that these cases are happening. And they're not looking at the fine detail of the tropism.
What about India? Cases have seen a slight uptick in recent days. Currently, there are at least 257 active cases. The highest number of cases come from the state of Kerala, followed by Maharashtra, where 2 deaths have been reported, and Tamil Nadu. India is closely monitoring the situation.
Right. So we're talking about, in terms of a population of over 1 billion people. I forgot, India has 1.4 billion, 1.6 billion, 1.2 billion, I don't know, but a lot of people. So the case number relative to the population is relatively low. All right. But because it's high density, it can flare up to thousands. I mean, look at what the Singapore cases in Thailand and Hong Kong, those were in the thousands. So this is going to flare up. Now, it'll flare up and then probably die down, and that's usually the dynamic of an endemic flare up. It's not that big of a deal. But there's this added problem with this pulsing. You have people that will get more boosters and it'll weaken their immune system more. And you'll have other people that are just getting pulsed with the natural infection multiple times a year or every other year. And it's causing disruption with their immune system. It's not helping them, it's weakening them. And it's because the spike protein went through a serial passage and had lots of gain of function. It had lots of affinity to different receptors that causes a cascade of things. This is not just an ACE2 issue. And that's what most people don't get in their head in the scientific community, in terms of researchers or in terms of clinicians. SARS-CoV-2 is not just one receptor pathogen. And so therefore, it's gonna manifest itself in a different way during the endemic phase than other types of pathogens, such as influenza. You know, in Spanish influenza, the Spanish flu was a big problem, right? But it eventually kind of went through its endemic phase and died down. Yes, there are people that died, but it's nowhere near as what it used to be in 1918. That isn't going to happen with SARS-CoV-2 because of the gain of function and the multiple receptors this thing hits, because of the tropism. But it's slower. It's slower. Even though it's mutating in a lot, its mutation is relatively slow. All right, compared to the quick tropism that takes place in HIV.
Preparedness is key, and the world has made some progress in this area. After 3 years of negotiations, countries have adopted the pandemic agreement. They signed off at an annual meeting of the World Health Organization. This is only the second time in the WHO's history then an international agreement has been reached. The first was the tobacco control deal in 2003. Of course, the US is not part of this agreement, having withdrawn from the WHO after Donald Trump took office. This may dim the treaty's success, but this legally binding accord is a positive step. It requires countries to take steps to prevent, prepare for, and respond to pandemics, with rapid sharing of data on new diseases, and improved accessibility of vaccines, masks, and other crucial supplies across the globe. And for the first time, the WHO itself will have an overview of this, while execution on the ground could be another battle altogether. This accord comes at a crucial time as Wuhan virus persists and evolves. It is a tangible example of strengthening prevention, international collaboration, and taking lessons from the pandemic that changed the world as we knew it.
At first post, we are choosing to hold on to accuracy. That means we won't all.
All right. So that's the update with SARS-CoV-2 in China and in Asia, and a little bit of a background and just a refresher of why it's so important to realize that it's not just the ACE2 receptor, and how AIDS-like syndrome is really important in terms of this dynamic. And I've been saying this since 2020. It's just playing out. Now, should Americans worry right now and, stock up on, toilet paper? No, don't worry about it right now. But the facts are this: live your life, but you can't hide. You cannot hide from this. All right. And, just be vigilant, and be vigilant in the sense of we'll have professionals out there saying, you got to have higher titers and blah, blah, blah. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't get boosters. Don't get boosters. Second issue is that you need to look at your health and look at ways that you can improve your immune system, bring down inflammation and boost up that immune system. Really important. If you listen to me on the multiple shows that I do almost on a daily basis, I tell you exactly how to do that. So just pay attention. But there is no magic bullet, and nobody can hide. And you can pretend all you want, but the bottom line is this: nobody can hide from this. Nobody. Mankind did something and thought they were in control, let it out, and now we are living through the consequences. So the best you can do is take charge of your own health, but do not buy into the propaganda that you have to continually boost up those titers through boosters. Don't do it, because it's going to be immunosuppressive over time. You're going to be non-responsive. Your titer levels aren't going to go up. They're going to actually go down. And your titer levels will go down quicker. And not only that, the max titer after that booster is actually lower than the previous max from the prior booster. So you're going to start showing non-responsiveness. Your IgG4s are going to go up, and it's going to be immunosuppressive on top of the sub-super antigen issue with the TCR. Don't do it. But that also means that if you get pulsed by the natural infection, it's going to cause havoc to your immune system too, for the same reasons. The spike has the S1 subunit. The S1 subunit blocks the CD4 from eliciting the immune response, because it's a sub-super antigen, and you're going to get this pro-inflammatory response causing tissue damage on top of it. That's just a key that's one of the key features of the spike protein, and you can't fight that. That's in the inoculation and in the natural infection. And if you're getting pulsed, what's happening is that there is a little bit of an immune response, because not all your CD4s are blocked, but it's just slowed down that immune response. And eventually the body will realize, oh, I have SARS-CoV-2 again, and then the IgG4s will pop up, and then it becomes immunosuppressive. And then you have to heal your damaged tissue. And again, if you have something mild, 3 to 5 days, it takes 2 weeks to heal. 2 weeks to heal for a mild infection. If you have something more major, that's more problematic in your pulmonary system or your other organ systems, it could take weeks or months to heal. And if you have long COVID that has lasted for 8 months and it's caused tissue problems and inflammation and it's chronic, it could take years to heal. And in all those cases, you are aging faster. You're aging faster even with a mild infection, but not as much. You're especially aging faster with a moderate to severe infection. Those are just the facts. You can't hide from this. Nobody can hide from it. DrPaulCottrell can't hide from it. The truthers can't hide from it. The ones that took the vaccine can't hide from it. The ones that didn't take the vaccine can't hide from it. Nobody can hide from this. Please go to my store and get the great products that I offer, help support my work, and donate if you like the content I do to help support my work. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You can be a paid member to Patreon. Make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please help support the work. And thank you for listening and have a nice day.